Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask an interesting question in my comments earlier this morning about creatine and pre-workout. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And person said, you know what though, Jason, a lot of pre-workouts have creatine in them. And because they have creatine in them, they do work. As even you've said, creatine is one of the few, if not possibly the only supplement outside of protein powders, which are just food, that has good data supporting that it actually benefits muscle gain, performance, stuff like that. So, in theory, don't those pre-workouts work? Well, here's the problem with that logic. Here's my creatine, right? I think I pay about $17 for this on Amazon. This is an entire kilogram. A kilo of creatine monohydrate. Now, what does the research say on creatine? That creatine monohydrate usually produces the best results. All these other things that have been come out with are just hustles by the supplement industry to crank out a more expensive version. When all the studies we have show that creatine monohydrate works just fine, works even better if you get something with it with a little bit of insulin response, some carbs or something. I just mix mine with protein powder and coffee. And that's how I do mine. That's what I do with it. Now, here's the problem. Kilogram. It's 5 grams in a serving. 1,000 grams in a kilogram. How much is that? That's what, about 200 servings? 200 servings. 200 servings. Now, depending on how you space it, that's anywhere between, depending on how you dose it, anywhere between, 6 months to up to a year's worth of creatine. Right? Because again, a lot of times people only take it post-workout because that's usually where it shows most of the benefits. It's post-workout. You don't necessarily need to take it every day to even seem to get the benefits from it. In fact, we could argue that might even be overkill. In fact, we could even argue that even the 5 grams that we take might be more than really necessary to get ideal results. Because again, we go back to these studies about people who eat large amounts of red meat oftentimes don't respond to creatine. Why? Because they seem to be getting enough from their food to get the majority of the response. Now, some people would be like, well, they're only getting like a gram out of a pound of steak. That couldn't be enough. Well, that could seem to be enough to get most of the response. Maybe that extra 4 grams you're getting out of the 5 is only giving you a little tiny benefit more than what you're getting out of that 1 gram. That's the problem we run into, is that the performance difference is so small for people who are adding it to their diet, who are already eating a fair amount of red meat and stuff, that the extra grams they're getting aren't making enough of a difference to make a difference. It's probably not very significant in terms of what they're getting out of it. Do you guys see where I'm going with this? You could stretch that out up to a year, but worst case, let's say you use it up in 6 or 7 months. You're going to spend, what, $30, $35 a year, tops, on creatine monohydrate if you just buy it like that, by the kilo, right there. Amazon delivers it to your house. Free shipping. Because we all have an Amazon Prime already, right? We all do. If you don't, I don't know what you're doing with your life at this point. In 2018, if you don't have an Amazon Prime and you shop online, I really don't know what you're doing with your life. But I digress. How much does a 1 month supply of most pre-workouts cost? $39? $49? In other words, more than a 1 year supply of creatine. And that's assuming you're going through the creatine a little faster than average. Still more than a 1 year supply. So when we start looking at it from that perspective, you've got to wonder, do these pre-workouts really work? No, that is moronic. That is moronic. That something that you can buy a 1 year supply of is the ingredient that works, that's proven to work in a pre-workout, of which that costs less for that 1 year supply than you pay for 1 month of your pre-workout. That's a problem. I mean, not only is that piss poor logic, people like that are just ready to be taken advantage of. I'd hate to see how people like that budget with everything else in their life. And I'm not saying that, $30 a month is breaking the bank. For most people, it's not. But realistically, not everybody out there, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that a pretty good chunk, at least half of people watching YouTube fitness, half of people buying supplements and training, probably don't make really good money. I bet you the majority are at working, at least 50%. People who are buying supplements, buying pre-workouts, are currently earning working class wages or lower. I bet you at least half. So, I mean, if that's how you're managing your money, that is pretty bad. you're going to have problems in life if that's the way you handle money. Because what if you do everything else like that in life? You know, what if you do everything else like that in life? You start spending as much on your monthly car note as you could get the same quality of car for over a year. You know, I mean, that's the sort of logic we're using. You start extrapolating it into bigger numbers, it starts looking real stupid. But, you know, people who manage their money well have to look at it that way. We look at everything like that. I do. Hell, I'm sitting here reloading ammo. I'm reloading ammo. Making these 10-cent bullets. So, the point is that's a bad use of your money. Furthermore, pre-workout versus post-workout. When you look at the various studies on creatine, does creatine tend to produce in the studies better results pre-workout or post-workout? What has been largely the finding? It does actually help pre-workout, but people who take it post-workout get just as good of results as people who take it pre-workout. And in some studies, the people who take it post-workout instead of pre-workout, if you only take it on your training days, which if you're going to take a pre-workout, most people aren't taking a pre-workout on their day off. If you only take the creatine on the days where you lift, which for most of us is anywhere between 3 and 5 days a week. Very, very few people are training more than that. And if you are, I promise you, you're either on a ton of gear or you're goofing off with fuck around-itis, or you're playing leapfrog and grab ass in the gym. You're not training very hard. For the majority of you, I can promise you you're not. Doing triple drop sets on cable curls is not training hard. Let's see how many sets of squats you're doing a week. You guys are training more than 5 days. I promise you you're not doing a whole hell of a lot of squatting and deadlifting. In other words, you're not doing a lot of big exercises that might actually benefit from all this creatine. So, the majority of people who are taking a pre-workout are taking it only on their training days. Well, the studies on creatine show that if you take it only on the days you lift, it tends to give a slightly better benefit post-workout. Those people get more out of it. So if we were to look at it as being a good pre-workout ingredient, even though it is probably one of, if not the only, really truly heavily studied supplements that does seem to benefit, that's not illegal now, that's still legal to purchase, because that's what happens with others. If most of these substances, when they're found to work, independent studies confirm they work, they get placed as a controlled substance because they're a drug. In other words, if something helps you build muscle or burn fat and it's not a normal food, that's called a drug. And that's how the FDA classifies it. It becomes a controlled substance. So that's one reason why I tell people, well, most supplements can't be proven to work. They aren't proven to work. And if they are proven to work, they're going to get outlawed. So the industry has a vested interest in not cranking out too damn many products that they know are going to be outlawed. So they have a vested interest in just marketing instead of actual research, right? They have a vested interest in cranking out stuff that doesn't work that they can just hype up or give you a placebo so that they can make more money off of it. That's how things work in the long term. That's what works out better, right? So, creatine is one of the few things that works, but ideally, if you're going to take it on training days, it works better post-workout. Why in the hell would we then want it in a pre-workout? If you just bought your own creatine by itself and took it post-workout, you would spend less than 1/10 of the money per year on your supplement, and you would get better results from it. So in what world would it even make sense to say buying a pre-workout and saying that it works because it has creatine in it, the one ingredient that's proven to work, or it's got some caffeine thrown in it? All right, fine. We know caffeine is a PED. But caffeine is pretty cheap also. Drink some coffee, problem solved. That's a food. Coffee has other benefits besides the caffeine in it, by the way. If you do a little research on it, there are some actual benefits to coffee. So ultimately, the only two things you usually see thrown into pre-workouts that work, it still makes them a ripoff. It still makes them not particularly useful. It's not a good use of your money. It's not a good use of your timing. It's essentially worthless. So this whole idea of saying that because your pre-workout has some creatine in it or it has some caffeine in it, that it justifies the sort of price tag they put on this crap, when if those are the only two things that are ever thrown into pre-workouts that actually do have proven benefits of any type, those things are a hell of a lot cheaper than that pre-workout. a hell of a lot cheaper. And then you're losing the other benefits, because coffee has other health benefits. If you look at it more closely in the data, besides its caffeine, the caffeine, it arguably can be the biggest problem with coffee. But there are other benefits to it as far as blood sugar control, insulin sensitivity, things like that. It actually has some uses. So you're getting the caffeine out of it, and not having the rest of the coffee, and then you're taking creatine. But then you look at the price tags on this stuff. The two things that you know in there that work, you could just get them separately, and you could take them on their own at more appropriate times and actually get better use out of them. So at the end of the day, this stuff is just absurd. It's absurd. Pre-workouts are a ripoff. And that's not even getting into all the research on them that shows that they don't actually even help. That's a whole nother topic. We're just looking at this one aspect with the creatine in there. And it doesn't even make any sense. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.